Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari.
Has its own time-lapse camera, and this is 6 weeks worth of basil, allowing us to harvest 52 bunches of basil per square meter while using less water than traditional farming. Then we have time. With a little time-lapse taking 3 months, one aeroponic tower can produce up to 12.
Givaradhari Rajajana Bandava Givaradhari Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udire Nasta Prayesh Abhadreshu Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Idam Bhagavatam Nama Purana Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishayasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swandavam Bhayat. Okay, my bookmark says chapter 18, verse 4. I hope that's right. Maharaj Prithu milks the earth planet. So after he was angry and the earth surrendered, now he's going to get what he wants out from the earth. And all this is, a lesson. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says food grains come from rain and rain comes from yajna. Now we think food comes from money because we're not farming. We're just begging or working, and we go and buy food from the farmers. The farmers, actually, it's indirect, but ultimately it comes from yajna. So if we do our yajna, Harinam yajna, that's our real yajna, the earth will provide for everything we need. All right, I'll start. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Sunyavari Paschatya Desa Tarane Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Namaha Tan Atishtati Yat Samyak Upayan Purvadarshitan Avar Ra Shadayopeta Upayan Vindatain Jasa. One who follows the principles and instructions enjoined by the great sages of the past can utilize these instructions for practical purposes. Such a person can very easily enjoy life and pleasures. Okay, that's exactly what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Follow the scriptures. All our acharyas say follow the previous acharyas and utilize the instructions. Practical
Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Vedic principles, Mahajano Yena Gata Sapanta, quoted from the Madhya Lila 17:186. That's from Mahabharata. Follow the Mahajanas. Urge us to follow the footsteps of the great liberated souls. In this way, we can receive benefit in both this life and the next, and we can also improve our material life. By following the principles laid down by great sages and saints of the past, we can very easily understand the aim of all life. The word avara, meaning inexperienced, is very significant in this verse. Every conditioned soul is inexperienced. Everyone is a bodha jata, born a fool and rascal. In democratic government, at the present moment, all kinds of fools and rascals are making decisions. But what can they do? What is the result of their legislation? They enact something today just to whimsically repeal it tomorrow. One political party utilizes the country for one purpose, and the next moment another political party forms a different type of government and nullifies all the laws and regulations. This process of chewing the chewed, punas charvita charvananam 7.5.13, will never make human society happy. In order to make all human society happy and prosperous, we should accept the standard methods given by the liberated persons. So you see how Prabhupada was very much aware of what's going on in the world. One time in New York, we went up north for some break from the daily Sankirtan, and we visited one farm, which was one of the early presidents of America, and he was noted for creating the two-party system, which is a very good trick. In America, it's called the Republicans and the Democrats. There was one independent candidate one year who had been a Green Beret and a general in Vietnam and many things, and he called them the Republicrats. They're all one, the Prabhupada said, and so the one party's in charge and everybody becomes unhappy, and the new party, the second party, in the next election, they elect the other party. But really it's the same thing. And the people think, oh, now we're going to get change. Every election, they're promising change, different party, because one man can only go for 8 years. And generally it changes the parties every time. But they don't really change. But the people think they're getting changed, so they don't think, oh, we're just getting the same thing, same dictators or something. Very tricky system. And in some countries they have many, many, many parties. And so nobody knows what's what. All right, so who would like to read first? Text number 5.
Okay, let me take it. Dan anadritiayo vidyam artam arabate swayam tasya vyabicharanti arta arabdascha puna puna. Translations. A foolish person who manufactures his own ways and means through mental speculation and does not recognize the authority of the sages who laid down unimpeachable directions is simply unsuccessful again and again in his attempts. Proper purport. At the present moment, it has become fashionable to disobey the unimpeachable directions given by the acharyas and liberated souls of the past. Presently,
People are so fallen that they cannot distinguish between a liberated soul and a conditioned soul. A conditioned soul is hampered by 4 defects. He is sure to commit mistakes. Illusion. He has a tendency to cheat others. His are imperfect. Consequently, we have to take direction from liberated persons. This Christian movement directly receives instructions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Persons who are strictly following his instructions, although he not be a liberated person, if he follows the Supreme liberated Personality of Godhead, his actions are naturally liberated from the contamination of the material nature. Lord Chaitanya therefore says, by my order, you may become a spiritual master. One can immediately become a spiritual master by having full faith in the transcendental words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and by following his instructions. Materialistic men are not interested in taking directions from a liberated person, but they are very much interested in their own concocted ideas, which make them repeatedly fail because God is now imperfect of conditions. Reality is completely bewildered. Hare Maharaj.
You can comment.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for giving me the opportunity to say something. Yeah, this my successful. One must follow examples of the areas. If we fail, we are bound to follow things, and our conclusions leads us completely and totally to failure. So this is the little understanding I have about the whole text. Krishna Maharaj.
Very good. The essence is, if we follow the previous acharyas, we follow the spiritual master's orders, follow scripture, then we're already liberated because we're not acting on the material platform anymore. But even if we join a group and we get initiated, but we don't follow, and we speculate, then we're not liberated. It's following that counts. All right, text 6. Someone else? Madhavan?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Text 6. Rakshasahi utadayo Ramanaya Visampate Vyayamna Maya Drista Asabi Adrita Vratai. Translations. My dear king, the seeds, roots, herbs, and grains, which were created by Lord Brahmans in the past, are now being used by non-devotees who are devoid of all spiritual understanding. Purport. Lord Brahma created this material world for the use of the living entities, but it was created according to a plan that all living entities who come into it to dominate it for sense gratification will be given directions by Lord Brahma in the Vedas in order that they might ultimately leave it and return home back to Godhead. All necessities grown on earth, namely fruits, flowers, trees, grains, animals, and animal byproducts, were created for use in sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. However, the planet Earth, in the shape of a cow, herein, submit that all these utilities are being used by non-devotees who have no plans for spiritual understanding. Although there are immense potencies within the earth for the production of grains, fruits, and flowers, this production is checked by the earth itself when it is misused by non-devotees who have no spiritual goals. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everything can be used for its satisfaction. Things should not be used for the sense gratification of the living entities. This is the whole plan of material nature, according to the directions of this material nature. In this verse, the word Atabi and Aditavratai are important. The word Asadbi refers to the non-devotees. The non-devotees have been described in Bhagavad Gita as Duskritina, miscreants, Muda, asses or rascals, Naradama, lowest of mankind, and Maya Parita Janaha, those who have lost their knowledge to the power of the illusory energy. All these persons are asat, non-devotees. Non-devotees are also called Griya Bhata, whereas the devotees is called Drita Vrata. According to plans, the misguided conditioned souls who have come to lord it over material nature should be trained to become Drita Vrata. This means that they should take a vow to satisfy their senses or enjoy material life only by satisfying the senses of the Supreme Lord. Activities intended to satisfy the senses of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, are called Krishna Te Ila Chestaha. This indicates that one can attempt all kinds of work, but one should do so to satisfy Krishna. This is described in Bhagavad Gita as Janatat Karma. The word Yajna indicates Lord Vishnu. We should work only for his satisfaction. In modern times, Kali Yuga, however, people have forgotten Vishnu altogether and they conduct their activities for sense gratification. Such people will gradually become poverty-stricken, but they cannot use things which are to be enjoyed by the Supreme Lord for their own sense gratification. If they continue like this, there will ultimately be a state of poverty and no grains, fruits, or flowers will be produced. Indeed, it is stated in the 12th canto of Bhagavatam that at the end of Kali Yuga, people will be so polluted that there will no longer be any grains, wheat, sugarcane, or milk. Hare Krishna.
All right. So we're just in the beginning of Kali Yuga and already we're seeing so much of this. So the earth is explaining to the Prithu like why she's holding back, because there's so many non-devotees misusing, everything. But Prithu doesn't agree with that. But the earth now, if we work the earth, can produce so much, and we're seeing more and more farmers around the world are going back to traditional, basically Vedic farming techniques, natural fertilizers and, crop rotation and everything, and getting so much more out of the same amount of land than this commercial one crop type of farming. And if we take it up, especially in Africa, we have a lot of land. I was just there. I saw in Wari huge land behind the new big temple, but not very many devotees, but huge land behind the temple with nothing going on. And that's right at the temple. In Port Harcourt too, there's a lot of land and they have all grass. Then they have to pay someone to cut the grass and buy a machine to cut the grass. And the guy who's cutting the grass cheats and steals the machine. Why not plant food? Grow food so you don't have to beg money to buy food. It would be much, why do we need grass? Nobody sits around in the grass. It's just troublesome. So that's just two places I noted. I haven't seen Kaduna for a while, but I heard they're doing something with their land. They always were doing a little bit, mango trees and such. And every temple has some farmland, even though it might not be right at the temple. So let's, honor the earth and honor our previous acharyas who want us to grow out of the food. Okay, Prithu Maharaj will help us. Okay, number 7, Joyti.
Yes, Maharaj, I will take it. Translation: My dear king, not only are grains and herbs being used by non-devotee, but as far as I am concerned, I am not being properly maintained. Indeed, I am being neglected by the king, who are not punishing these rascals who have turned into thieves by using grains for sense gratification. Consequently, I have hidden all these seeds which were meant for the performance of sacrifice. Purport: that which happened during the time of Prithu Maharaj and his father, King Vena, is also happening at this present moment. A huge arrangement exists for the production of large scale industrial and agriculture products. But all these products are meant for sense gratification. Therefore, despite such productive capacities, there is scarcity because the world's population is full of thieves. The word Kori Bhute indicates that the population has turned to thievery. According to Vedic understanding, men are transformed into thieves when they plan economic development for sense gratification. It is also explained in Bhagavad Gita that if one eats food grain without offering them to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Yagna, he is a thief and liable to be punished. According to spiritual communism, all properties on the surface of a globe belong to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The population has a right to use goods only after offering them to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the process of accepting prasad. Unless one eats prasad, he is certainly a thief. It is the duty of governor and king to punish such thieves and maintain the world nicely. If this is not done, grain will no longer be produced and people will simply starve. Indeed, not only will people be obliged to eat less, but they will kill each other and eat each other's flesh. They are already killing animal for flesh. So when there will no longer be grains, vegetables, and fruits, they will kill their own son and father and eat their flesh for sustenance.
Wow. Well, there are, Prabhupada said, because there's so much abortion, so there are people that eat the flesh of the aborted fetuses, the Prophet said they become very attached because that's very tender flesh. They also use it for cosmetics and all kinds of other things. Try to convince people that, it's mercy. In America, I know I did, I know the rest of the world, maybe not so organized, but a great part of the middle part of America, they grow mostly corn and soybeans. And something like 80 to 90%, at least what I heard a few years ago, 80% of the corn and 90% of the soybeans or something goes to feed pigs and cows so that people can eat the flesh of the pigs and cows. If they would use the same amount of land to grow food to feed people, they could feed like so many times more people than the flesh of these animals. So they're wasting the land so much just to grow food to feed the animals so they can eat them. So as a result, they have wars, they have droughts, they have floods, they have so many problems, but they can't see the relation. Prabhupada stressed it's all because of the animal slaughter, especially cow slaughter. Cow slaughter is mechanized, so one factory can kill 10,000 in a day. So you can't imagine what kind of karma. If you happen to get near one of those places, you'd feel so sick you wouldn't believe it. I've been near some of them, and if you get more near, you can hear the screams of all the animals. But they think that's that people have to eat. They have no idea. So we have a big job to do to educate people about prasadam and distribute prasadam in a massive way. Let people see that they, how good food can be without animal flesh. Okay, that's my comment. Let's see who's next.
Hare Krishna.
Tamal
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Can I have a little comment?
Yes, please.
I want to believe that the flesh eating is causing a lot of imbalance, especially in Nigeria here. If you have people who are hearing cattle, so because of deforestation, they tend to bring their cattle down south, and eventually they will eat farmers' crops to feed their cows. So it brings a lot of confusion. Even planting now becomes a problem because we have terrorists killing people in the farms. So I believe it's this flesh eating that is causing all this confusion, imbalance. If people stop eating it, then there will be no need for cows to be disturbing farmers, and so many other problems are coming up because of others. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So Hari Nama Name Kevalam Kalona Steva Gataranyata. We all say this, and something like the prasadam fair, maybe we don't pay much attention to it. It becomes mechanical. But this is a solution, the yagya. And of course, our yagya includes offering all our food to Krishna, not just vegetarianism, but prasadam. And Christians I think everybody has some idea. I know in my family, my parents were not much Christian, but they would say the prayer, "Come, Lord Jesus, be our guest, and let this food for us be blessed." For us be blessed. But in other words, Jesus, come and eat with us. That was just a prayer. They certainly didn't say it with much feeling. I remember I was not very old, and my father, who was more or less of an atheist, he quit saying that prayer, and I was shocked. But then I just got used to it. But when I became a devotee, we have to give thanks to Krishna, gratitude. Most people don't know where the food is coming from. They just get it from the market. They don't know the farmers. But we want to be farmers. It's the most righteous work for the grihastas is agriculture. And the future of the world is in African agriculture, many people are saying. That's what Mr. what's his name? Dongre, the richest man, the Nigerian with the cement. Now he's putting huge money into agriculture. Because, you've got such a huge population, you're going to feed them. And also exporting food is a very good business. Because many countries have gone so much into industry that they're not producing food. They have to import the food. England, something like 80% of the food is imported. So if there ever was a real war, that really affected international flights and shipping, and then they wouldn't have any food. In a few days, it'd be gone. Japan, same thing. Africa, hopefully stupidly importing so much rice when you have so much land just lying there. Could be growing unlimited rice or some other grain that's easier and more healthy. But somehow some demons have convinced you have to eat rice, and then you have to import the rice, and somebody in between is making so much money. The people who are importing it. In Vietnam and Thailand, and they're sending you the lowest grade of rice. Okay, sorry to go on, but this is the nature, the condition of the Kali Yuga. But the only way to really push back Kali Yuga is by spreading the holy name. Chanting the holy name for Krishna's pleasure, not for money, not for prestige or anything else, but for Krishna's pleasure. Then the yajna will work and everything will get better. Chitraputra. Next, Nunam. Haribol.
Maharaj, can I continue and read?
Yes. Who said that?
Jyoti Sarupa.
Okay, whoever said it, go ahead. Volunteers.
Due to being stocked for a very long time, all the grain seed within me have certainly deteriorated. Therefore, you should immediately arrange to take this seed out by the standard process which is recommended by the Acharyas or Shastras. Purport. When there is a scarcity of grain, the government should follow the method prescribed in the Shastras and approved by the Acharyas. Thus, there will be a sufficient production of grains and food scarcity, and famine can be checked. Bhagavad Gita recommends that we perform yagna, sacrifice by the performance of yagna. The sufficient clouds gather in the sky, and when there are sufficient cloud, there is also sufficient rainfall. In this way, agriculture cultural matters are taken care of. When there is a sufficient grain production, the general populace ate the grain. An animal like cow, goat, and other domestic animal eat the grasses and grains also. According to this arrangement, human being should perform the sacrifices recommended in the Shastras. And if they do so, there will be no longer be food scarcity. In Kali Yuga, the only sacrifice recommended in Sankirtana Yagna. In this verse, there are two significant words yogena by the approved method and drastena as explain, exemplified by the former acharyas. One is mistaken if he thinks that by applying modern machines such as tractor grain can be produced. If one goes to desert and uses a tractor, there is still no possibility of producing grain. We may adopt various means, but it is essential to know that the planet Earth will stop producing grain if sacrifices are not performed. The earth has already explained that because non devotees are enjoying the production of food, she has reserved food seed for the performance of sacrifice. Now, of course, atheists will not believe in the spiritual method of producing grain, but whether they believe or not, the fact remains that we are not independent to produce grain by the mechanical means. As far as the approved method is concerned, it is enjoined in the Shastras that intelligent men in this age will take to the Sankirtana movement, and by so doing they shall worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya, whose bodily complexion is golden and who is always accompanied by his confidential devotee to preach this Krishna consciousness movement all over the world in its present condition. The world can only be saved by introducing this Sankirtana, this Krishna consciousness movement. As we have learned from the previous verses, one who is not in Krishna consciousness is considered a thief, even though he may be materially very advanced. A thief cannot be placed in comfortable position. A thief is a thief and he is punishable. Because people are without Krishna consciousness, they have become thieves and consequently they are being punished by the laws of material nature. No one can check this, not even by introducing so many relief fund and humanitarian institutions. Unless the people of the world take to Krishna consciousness, there will be a scarcity of food and much suffering.
Wow. Well, at least it's not just me saying that. That's why we stress everybody, please read the books. Otherwise, they think, oh, Kavi Chandra's just saying we have to do Sankirtan, we have to do this, but, you know. But if we read the books, then you will know this is what Prabhupada said over and over, almost every purport. And the more further into different cantos we get in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the more often he says it. Because that's just a fact. Krishna is the supreme controller. Okay. Next. Who can read next?
I'll try to read, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Salika.
Please accept my respectful obeisances of Srila
Got a good
Prabhupada.
voice.
The verse reads, Vatsam kalpaya me viram yenat am vatsala tavaha duksye shiramayan karmaham anot anirupam chadu anam duk dharam cha maabaho Bhutanam Bhuta Bhavanam Anam Ipsam Ujaswahad Bhagavan Vanchate Yadi. Translation. O great hero, protector of living entities, if you desire to relieve the living entities by supplying them sufficient grain, and if you desire to nourish them by taking milk from me, you should make arrangement to bring a cow suitable for this purpose and a pot in which the milk can be kept, as well as a milkman to do the work. Since I will be very much affectionate towards my calf, your desire to take milk from me will be fulfilled. Srila Prabhupada's purport. These are nice instructions for milking a cow. The cow must first have a calf, so that out of affection for the calf, she will voluntarily give sufficient milk. There must also be an expert milkman and a suitable pot in which to keep the milk. Just as a cow cannot deliver sufficient milk without being affectionate to her calf, the earth cannot produce sufficient necessities without feeling affection for those who are Krishna consciousness, who are Krishna conscious. Even though the earth is being in the shape of a cow may be taken figuratively, the meaning herein is very explicit. Just as a calf can derive milk from a cow, all living entities, including animals, birds, beasts, reptiles, and aquatics, can receive their respective food from the planet Earth, provided the human beings are not asat or adrita vrata, as we have previously discussed. When human society becomes asat or ungodly or devoid of Krishna consciousness, the entire world suffers. If human beings are well behaved, animals will also receive sufficient food and be happy. The ungodly human being, ignorant of his duty to give protection and food to the animals, kills them to compensate for the insufficient productions of grains. Thus, no one is satisfied, and that is the cause for the present condition in today's world. Hare Krishna.
Right. Comment?
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Maharaj. This is very powerful. The first thought that came to my mind as I was reading this is devotee care, because I'm trying to adapt it to personal application. Happy devotees, happy Krishna consciousness. When devotees are carefully maintained and taken care of, there will be an atmosphere of enthusiastic devotion, and service will become satisfying to the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. Because based on the comment from the previous test, we've seen that there has been a continuous request that devotees should go to farm. Even though we all know that this is the fact, we are not going to the farm because those who have gone to the farm in the past, there has been a bad experience. So devotees who take to the farm were considered to be condemned or prisoners. People were sent to the farm as people who are being sentenced to go and suffer. And this mentality has pervaded, especially in our community, West African Yatra. So devotees who go to farm are considered those who are not important, those who are disobedient, those who are, and so therefore they are not cared for. And because they were not cared for, many people refused to go to the farm. So as I was reading this in personal application, I was just thinking how wonderful it would be if devotees are cared for appropriately, how they will become enthusiastic to take responsibility to serve. Directly to the text purport given by Srila Prabhupada. When the cow is pleased, just like if the Lord is pleased, he releases, the demigods becomes pleased. And when the demigods are pleased, there is appropriate rainfall, the earth produces grains, and all the elements of creation produces, and all citizens on the earth becomes happy. So my understanding here is that this Lord must be pleased. And when the Lord is pleased, the devas becomes pleased. And when the devas are pleased, they release naturally food grains, rain, and all that makes the earth yield enough food to sustain humanity. And in our practical lives, if devotees are taken care of nicely, there will be enthusiastic devotees, and devotees will develop the mood to render service. That's my understanding of this text, Maharaj.
Yes. Very good. This is not only in West Africa, but even in Chopade, when they first got the Eco Village land and they assigned some brahmacharis to go there, they felt like they were being punished and, sent away or something. Like, okay, you're useless. You can't collect a lot of money or something, so you go to the farm. But actually, then they realize after they've been there that it's a great benediction to be on the farm. And anyone who works in the land, becomes very healthy. And then when you see how happy the devotees are at the temples when they get really nice food coming in, it changes. But this is what we have to change. Is actually in the GBC many years ago was Shivaram Swami, who's trying to develop a self-sufficient community and is way ahead of other places. And their farming in Hungary gave a presentation, and the resolution was that in all our talks, we should stress farming as much as we stress book distribution. But, I'm trying to do that nowadays, but especially in Africa where we have so much land. But we don't have that many devotees, but we could have if we just provide a little facility for working the land, or just let local farmers work the land and take half the crops and we get the other half. At least do that much, but utilize all the land we have. Prabhupada be very, very happy. Okay, thank you. You want to read another one?
I can read the next one.
Yeah.
Ram mam chakuru mam rajan deva vrishtam yatapaya apartav apibe edramte upa valteta me vibo. My dear king, may I inform you that you have to make the entire surface of the globe level. This will help me. Even when the rainy season has ceased, rainfall comes by the mercy of King Indra. Rainfall will remain on the surface of the globe, always keeping the earth moistened, and thus it will be auspicious for all kinds of production. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. King Indra of the heavenly planet is in charge of throwing thunderbolts and giving rainfalls. Generally, thunderbolts are thrown on the tops of hills in order to break them to pieces. As these pieces are spread asunder, in due course of time, the surface of the globe gradually becomes fit for agriculture. Level land is especially conducive to the production of grain. Thus, the planet Earth requested Maharaj Prithu to level the surface of the earth, breaking up the island and mountains. Hare Krishna.
Okay. All right, who's next? Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Salika pronounces very clearly and forcefully. So think you should get some lessons. All right. Chitraputra, did you read yet?
Maharaj, please, I'm about to read.
Okay.
Okay. So, iti priyam hitam vakyam bhuvadaya bhupati vasam kritva manum panam au adut hat sakala usadi. After hearing the auspicious and pleasing words of the planet Earth, the king accepted them. He then transformed Swayambhuva Manu into a calf and milked all the herbs and grains from the earth in the form of a cow, keeping them in his cupped hands. Tata parecha savatra saram adadate buddha tato nyecha yata kamam dududu pritu bhavitam. Others who were as intelligent as King Pritu also took the essence out of the earthly planet. Indeed, everyone took this opportunity to follow in the footsteps of King Pritu and get whatever he desired from the planet Earth. Purport. The planet Earth is also called Vasundhara. The word Vasu means wealth, and Dara means one who holds. All creatures within the earth fulfill the necessities required for human beings, and all living entities can be taken out of the earth by the proper means, as suggested by the planet Earth and accepted and initiated by King Pritu. Whatever is taken from the earth, either from the mines, from the surface of the globe, or from the atmosphere, should always be considered the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and should be used for yajna, Lord Vishnu. As soon as the process of yajna is stopped, the earth will withhold all productions, vegetables, trees, plants, fruits, flowers, other agricultural products and minerals. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, the process of yajna was instituted from the beginning of creation. By the regular performance of yajna, the equal distribution of wealth, and the restriction of sense gratification, the entire world will be made peaceful and prosperous. As already mentioned, in this age of Kali, the simple performance of Sankirtan Yajna, the holding of festivals as initiated by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, should be introduced in every town and village. Intelligent men should encourage the performance of Sankirtana Yagya by their personal behavior. This means that they should follow the process of austerity by restricting themselves from illicit sex life, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. If the intelligent men or the brahmanas of society would follow the rules and regulations, certainly the entire face of this present world, which is in such chaotic condition, would change and people will be happy and prosperous. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So, a lot of repetition because that's what it's all about. Like we're repeating this Maha Mantra. Some people will say, well, you're just hypnotized, and, it's just words. And I don't know if you've heard some of Bhakti Vasudev Swami's talks. Anybody? He's quite popular nowadays. And I heard him a couple times, and somebody was making this comment. Actually, in this radio show, the person was a devotee, but she was just presenting some of the things. So she said, well, some people say, you're just chanting, you're just saying the same thing over again. It's like some hypnotism. brainwashing or something. So he said, "Well, I've been chanting this for 40 years. I have a PhD. You think I'm stupid?" And the people, then they don't have any comment. They go, "Well, you can't say, well, you're really stupid to be chanting all the time," and then because they also think to have a PhD means you're something really special. But there's many people nowadays with PhDs who are chanting and going on Sankirtan. We have a couple here in Israel, a young couple of Indians, and they're both PhDs, and they're on every Harinam party, and Mataji's dancing like crazy and distributing books, and and they're both like some kind of PhD scientists, and they're working on something beyond PhD. So it's not that just losers, become religious. Prabhupada said the devotees are the most intelligent people. And we just have to apply it that grow your own food. People will be coming to you begging for food, and we don't have to go begging for food. They'll be coming to us if we take full advantage. There's so much science of farming where you can grow about 3 crops together and they feed each other, and you get more yield than if you just grew any one of those crops in the same land. So, and this is all being practiced, all over the world. In some country, when they need a fence, they just plant cassava really close together, and that's their fence. And then they just harvest not only the crop that's inside the fence, but then they have so much cassava. So there's so many different things we can do. All right. Thank you. All right, let's see what else gets out from the earth. Africa also has in the earth in Africa so many valuable minerals that the world is fighting over, and so we can have cell phones and electric cars and so many things. All right. Tamal Krishna. You there?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yes, my network is worrying me. My network is not good here at all.
Can you read or not?
Okay. That's test 13. Others who were as intelligent as in Prithu also take their essence out of the earth planet. Indeed, everyone took this opportunity to follow in the footsteps of King Prithu.
I read that.
Okay.
That's the last one I read. So go to the next one.
All right. Hare Krishna. 14. All the great sages transform Brihaspati into a cup and making the senses into a pot. They make all kinds of Vedic knowledge to purify words, mind, and hearing. Purport. Brihaspati is the priest of the heavenly planet. Vedic knowledge was received in logical order by the great sages through Brihaspati for the benefit of human society, not only in this planet, but throughout the universes. In other words, Vedic knowledge is considered one of the necessity for human society. If human society remains satisfied simply by taking grains from the planet Earth, as well as other necessities for maintaining the body, society will not be sufficiently prosperous. Humanity must have food for the mind and ear, as well as for the purpose of vibration. As far as transcendental vibration are concerned, the essence of all Vedic knowledge is the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the Kali age, if this Vedic Maha Mantra is chanted regularly and held regularly by the devotional process of Shravanam Kirtanam, it will purify all societies. And thou, humility, will be happy and materially and spiritually.
Will be happy.
Hare
Thus,
Krishna.
said humility will be happy. That's true, but
Yes.
where there is humanity, humanity will become happy, both materially and spiritually.
Yes.
That's what we have to understand, that material is subordinate to spiritual. Mahamaya is a servant of Yogamaya, an expansion of Yogamaya. So the twisted idea is that if we get materially opulent, then we can advance spiritually. Now that can happen, but we see it doesn't always work that way. And we have a very powerful example in our community in Nigeria of one devotee became very, very rich, without working for it, by good karma. But his spiritual life just collapsed. He got, too bewildered. But historically, spiritually advanced people, like I'm in Israel, so last week we had a pilgrimage. And we went to some of the holy places of Jesus. The first one was where the Virgin Mary, where the angel came and told her that you're going to have this child, and the beautiful church there, and the Pope, he gave that church to the Franciscan monks. Now, you probably all know Saint Francis and the Franciscan. They're very austere amongst the monks. Saint Francis was super austere, and they take a vow of poverty. It's a serious vow. Saint Francis called it sister poverty. And he didn't, and he was coming from very rich families, but he had a lot of realizations when he went to war, and he just took off all his rich clothes and everything in public and renounced everything and became the most renounced monk. And then many other young rich boys followed him, but monks historically in every religion, they're poor. They want to focus on spiritual advancement. But there are Rajarishis who are completely spiritual advanced also. The point is not to get distracted by the material. If someone is mad after John Mysore Yashuti Shibir by wealth and fame and education and beauty, then you can't chant the holy name with feeling. Now, I meant to stop, but everybody was very enthusiastic. Back sometime there was mention of one verse from the 11th canto that's the essential verse in our understanding of Lord Chaitanya. I was going to ask if anybody knew that verse, you know, that the incarnation of the age will not be blackish and he will be always chanting the holy name. Does anybody know that verse? Krishna Varnam, first word.
Krishna Varna Matusa Krishna, Sangopangal Strapasadam, Jagyas and Kitana Praye, Yajanti, he Sumeda Saha.
That was Chaitanya Prema. Was it? Huh? Translation? Translation? Come on.
I can give the translation. Maharaj.
Yeah, somebody give it.
Okay, the translation says that in the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sing the names of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions.
Right. Very good. So those who have good brain substance, medasa means brain substance, and su means good. Who has good, and there's those who have alpha medasa, bad brain. They don't believe in Krishna. But, so this is the yagya for the age, the Yuga Dharma. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we may not realize, you know, because when we go out chanting, you know, most people don't pay much attention to it. Some places they do more than others, but they don't even know what it is. But people will join in, they'll sing and dance. Some people will criticize. Some people just tell us to get out of the way. But it's having a huge effect on the whole planet. And devotees are chanting all over the world. Devotees are traveling all over, just spreading the holy name. And we need that. We have a few groups in Africa doing that more and more. And the more we do it, the better. You know, Krishna, people will question, what are you doing? You know, how is this chanting going to help the poverty or something? You know, that's the only thing that's going to help, because this is what's going to uplift the consciousness. You know, some of the so-called poorest countries in the world, like Nigeria, Bangladesh, many countries, as far as the average income of the people and everything, but they're actually very rich countries in natural resources. And the rich people are very rich, and they're just, they're exploiting. They're taking much more than their share, and they're not sharing it. So that's the problem. But as people get elevated and realize we're all part and parcel, and you know, you can only eat so much, you can only sleep so much. You know, when you sleep, it doesn't matter how rich you are, they take up the same space. When you're buried also, no matter how rich you are, you can only eat so much. And some of the richest people can't eat anything because of sickness. All they can eat is barley water or something. This is actually factual. because there's so much anxiety you can't digest. But it can change the world. It is changing, and um, it's just simply due to corruption. There's so much food, so much wealth, so much land, and it's not being utilized properly all over the world. Like I said, in America, so much farmland. I never met one farmer, and a lot of farmers are not very educated as far as as far as academic education. And so I asked farmer, "What do you grow?" And he said, "I corn and beans, I mean soybean and corn." And I said, "Why do you grow that?" He said, "Government told me to grow that." You know, and then the government buys that from him at some cheating price, and then he has to buy all his food from, that's imported from Mexico or something. Well, they pay other farmers not to grow food. At least in America, the government will pay a farmer not to grow food because they want to import from some other country, so that country will buy weapons from them or something. So it's just totally insane, you know. In Ivory Coast, Bhakti tradition, so they used to grow a lot of rice, but the French want chocolate and bananas. So they just grow chocolate and bananas, and then they have to buy the rice from somebody else and buy all the other food. So we have to, we have, at least for our own little communities, get it right. If you go to Mayapur, just look around and see how the farmers grow everything. They don't grow cash crops. They don't just grow like unlimited fields of the same thing. They grow everything so they don't have to go outside to eat. And if you have all your own food, then you don't have much other problem because our food isn't half of our expense. Okay, so we'll continue. Uh, I think we got everybody read one time at least, right? Is that right? I'll read one. One 15. Everybody's getting what they want in it. All the demigods made Indra, the king of heaven, into a calf, and from the earth they melt the beverage soma, which is nectar. Thus they became very powerful in mental speculation and bodily and sensual strength. Purport. In this verse, the word soma means nectar. Soma is a kind of beverage made in the heavenly planets from the moon to the kingdoms of the demigods in the various higher planetary systems. By drinking this soma beverage, the demigods become more powerful mentally and increase their sensual power and bodily strength. The word Hiranmayena, Patrena, indicate that this soma beverage is not an ordinary intoxicating liquor. The demigods would not touch any kind of liquor, nor is soma a kind of drug. It is a different kind of beverage available in the heavenly planets. Soma is far different from the liquors made for demoniac people, as explained in the next verse. In Soma, usually only the demigods can take it. And there's many like intoxicating things now that people think is some kind of soma and is making them a. When someone is drunk, even ordinary drunkard, they think, that everything they say is beautiful poetry, like, but it sounds more like a donkey. Okay, I'll read one more. This is interesting. Daicha Danava Vatsanya. Praladam Asurabhabamam. The sons of Diti and the demons transformed Prahlad Maharaj, who was born in an Asura family, into a cat, and they extracted various kinds of liquor and beer, which they put into a pot made of iron. Purport. The demons also have their own type of beverages in the form of liquor and beer. Just as the demigods use soma rasa for their drinking purposes, the demons drink born of Diti take great pleasure in drinking wine and beer. Even today, people of demoniac nature are very much addicted to liquor and beer. The name of Prahlad Maharaj is very significant in this connection because Prahlad Maharaj was born in a family of demons as the son of Hiranyakashipu. By his mercy, the demons were and still are able to have their drinks in the form of wine and beer. The word aya, iron, is very significant, whereas the nectarine stoma was put into a golden pot. The liquors and beers were put into an iron pot because the liquor and beer are inferior. They are placed in an iron pot, and because soma rasa is superior, it is placed in a golden pot. So now the liquor shop's such a common thing. Sometimes they give it a nice name like bottle shop. And Bhakti Vinod's poem, The Glistening Bottles That Shine, they make beautiful bottles for the liquor, beautiful labels, golden, shiny labels, beautiful designs. I remember one year I came to Nigeria and everybody was celebrating because Guinness had introduced a modern bottle, a very, modern design bottle. And they were all, oh, Nigeria's come into the model world. And they had big festivals with Charlie Boy and everything, glorifying the Guinness company for putting the beer in a new bottle. And I was in Bali, which is a big tourist place, when the lockdown came from the so-called pandemic, the scamdemic, the plandemic, and everything closed, all the shops except the liquor shops. They were always open. They never closed the liquor shops. And they have home delivery, You don't have to go to the liquor shop. You can just get online and order whatever you want and they'll bring it in 10 minutes on a motorbike all over the world like that. 24 hours whiskey shops. So that means we have a very demoniac civilization, basically. Right? And in Nigeria, there may be a problem for trucking, but the beer trucks are always rolling. The beer factories are always working, run by demons. I was in one country and they had a drought and they were telling people you can't wash your car, you can't water your gardens, and can't take a bath, and we have a shortage of water. But they had a huge beer manufacturing run by the government. And I went to somebody in the government to ask him, because I said he was Indian, but fortunately. I said, we have a big Tulsi garden. He said, yeah, you can water, but do it at night when nobody sees you. And then I said, if you weren't making beer, you could save so much water. He said, I know, but we can't do that. There'd be revolution. If they told people you can't drink beer, they can tell them you can't take a bath and you can't wash your car. But if they told them you can't have any beer, they'd they'd revolt against the government. It's the demons. Okay, somebody call on the next reader. Samsung, you were first. Rathaparayana, still incognito online. Samsung. Okay, next verse.
Okay. Text 17. The inhabitants of Gandharvaloka and Apsaraloka made Vijvasvasu into a calf, and they drew the milk into a lotus flower pot. The milk took the shape of sweet musical art and beauty. Text 18. The fortunate inhabitants of Pitriloka, who preside over the funeral ceremonies, made Aryama into a calf. With great faith, they milked caviar, food offered to the ancestors, into an unbaked earthen pot, purported by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. In Bhagavad Gita 9:25, it is said, Pritiniyanti Pritrivrataha. Those who are interested in family welfare are called Pritrivrata. There is a planet called Pritiloka, and the predominating deity of that planet is called Aryama. He is somewhat of a demigod, and by satisfying him, one can help ghostly family members develop a gross body. Those who are very sinful and attached to their family, house, village, or country do not receive a gross body made of material elements, but remain in a subtle body composed of mind, ego, and intelligence. Those who live in such subtle bodies are called ghosts. This ghostly position is very painful because a ghost has intelligence, mind, and ego, and wants to enjoy material life. But because he doesn't have a gross material body, he can only create disturbances for want of material satisfaction. It is the duty of family members, especially the son, to offer oblations to the demigods, to the demigod Ayama, or to Lord Vishnu. From time immemorial in India, the son of a dead man goes to Gaya, and at a Vishnu temple there, offers oblations for the benefits of his ghostly father. It is not that everyone's father becomes a ghost, but the oblations of Pinda are offered to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, so that if a family member happens to become a ghost, he will be favored with a gross body. However, if one is habituated to taking the prasad of Lord Vishnu, there is no chance of his becoming a ghost or anything lower than a human being. In Vedic civilization, there is a performance called Shraddha, by which food is offered with faith and devotion. If one offers oblations with faith and devotion, either to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu or to his representative in Pritiloka, Aryama, one's forefathers will attain material bodies to enjoy whatever material enjoyment is due them. In other words, they do not have to become ghosts. Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Yeah. Of course, a devotee doesn't have to do that because by being a devotee, you're automatically liberating, all your family members. But depending on the culture we're in, sometimes we do these rituals. Different cultures have different types of rituals. Even Lord Chaitanya went to Gaya and did all the ceremonies that one does for the departed father. The standard. But there he also met his spiritual master there and got initiated. So it wasn't just some ordinary thing. But we are offering prasad, taking prasad, worshiping the Supreme Lord every day, chanting the holy name. So your father and grandfather and great grandfather and your children and their children, everybody is benedicted. You should understand that. And obviously, there are ghosts in Africa. Everybody knows for sure there are ghosts. Some people try to say there's no such thing, but they're everywhere because nobody's doing these yagas and people are dying in all kinds of terrible situations and becoming ghosts. All right. Who can read next? That was the long purport of the good
Hare
one.
Krishna, Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a question.
Okay.
Inside the text, they explain that the ghost being can only cause disturbance. So how do they cause this disturbance, and what type of disturbance do they cause?
Who can say? Kalika? You know about ghosts?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Plus, Madhavan Prabhu, could you repeat your question, please?
Thank you. Inside the text, it was explained that the ghostly being can only create disturbances. So I'm asking, what type of disturbances the ghostly beings create? What are the disturbances? How do they disturb?
One of the things that the ghostly beings can do to disturb is to occupy a body of a person whose consciousness is weak and engage the body in doing mischievous things or in attacking another person. A ghostly person does not have a physical body, but they have desires. And to fulfill their desires, they take advantages of souls who have sometimes people who are addicted to drinking alcohol, who loses their senses, who are not in control of their senses. They take advantage of such bodies to fulfill their desires. They suppress the soul activities in that body because the soul is actually lost its control of the body. So they can create so many disturbances in that way. We have also seen from African culture that sometimes we see in the house without physically seeing anyone. We see items bangling here and there. In Western culture, we call it horror film, but we see it happen almost on a daily basis in African culture. So these are activities of the souls. They just want to create attention or fulfill certain desires. So in this way, they create so many disturbances. And for this, I've learned also before even during devotional service that souls who have a normal to sex life, they go in and then try to engage the opposite sex in the ghostly bodies. So these are some of the activities I know that the ghostly they do based on the knowledge I've acquired. But maybe Maharaj has more detailed information too.
Yeah, well, I think in Africa, like you said, in African culture, people know very well that mental illness is almost always ghosts. In Ayurvedic science, there's like, I don't know, 20 some different kinds of ghosts. and what kind of mental illness they cause. And they can make a lot of trouble for them, mental illness. They can create all kinds of quarreling and fighting amongst people. Like if they, like I've seen one time in San Francisco, in America, I went there for book distribution on Saturday night, and I got arrested. So they put me in the jail. There were all these drunks in there and crazy people. And one guy, he was, such a drunkard, and he would be sitting there like, then all of a sudden he would jump up and he would just be talking away like anything, just talking all amazing. And then he would jump up again and he would be talking, but completely different voice, everything different. Different ghosts were taking over. I was like watching it. Wow. So, like this so-called schizophrenia, when people have two different personalities. Sometimes they have people with 20 different personalities. It's all different ghosts. They get taken over by different ghosts. Even they know, oh, this one, that one. And they can create so much diseases, even, they can create diseases. They can, they can also trick people and promise and help them even to do different things. But then there's a big price you have to pay for that. So Prabhupada talked about, he gave several examples. He said somewhere when he was doing his business, there was a house and nobody wanted to rent it because it was haunted by ghosts. So he rented it at a very cheap price, and then he chanted or whatever he did, and the ghosts never, left. And he told a story when he was John Lennon's house. There was one gardener, and he was saying how he couldn't sleep every night. There was so much noise in his house, so much disturbance, and he couldn't sleep. And Prabhupada said there's a ghost there. So he told the devotees, you go there and you take conch shells, a lot of incense, and you just go and have a huge kirtan in this place, for a few hours. And then devotees did that, and the ghost left, and then the man could sleep peacefully. But they're very common, and they cause a lot of trouble. So if people are weak, intoxicated people are sleeping like that, then the ghost comes in, and all of a sudden they'll get up and they'll be very lucid. Sometimes they become very strong. Nobody can hold them down. Sometimes people and then they harm themselves, they burn themselves and cut themselves. There was a famous movie back in the 70s called The Exorcist. Did you ever hear of that one? The Roman Catholic Church, they have certain priests that get trained as exorcists to get rid of ghosts. And they say that in the last 10 years or so, uh, they need to train more and more priests because so many people in desperation, the medical doctors can't help them, and they take shelter of all kinds of black magic and, mullums and stuff. And then more and more people are getting haunted by ghosts because you think these ghosts are going to help you, but they take over and they demand a very high price. So don't do that. But the more we spread the holy name, then that will drive them away. That help?
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank
There's
you.
one place in the Bhagavatam where it lists the different names of the different kinds of ghosts. And what, they make trouble, but mental illness is not always. Sometimes it's generally a chemical imbalance in somebody's body or but many times it's ghosts. Many kinds of disturbances like that. People just have inexplicable disease or something. And it's not very difficult to curse somebody. It's very difficult to remove curse. Something like it's easy to shoot a gun and shoot somebody, but it's not easy to take out the bullet. Taking out the bullet requires very skillful doctors. All right? So spread the holy name more and more. This is a real cure, the real thing to help. Otherwise, so many churches there in Africa are advertising how they'll help you, but actually they're worshiping ghosts all night, some of them, right? They're calling the ghosts to come. Kill, 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 kill. All right. Well, maybe we can finish the chapter. Carry on, just a few more minutes.
Should I continue?
Yeah.
Okay. Text 19. After this, the inhabitants of Sidaloka, as well as the inhabitants of Vidyadhara Loka, transformed the great sage Kapila into a calf, and then making the whole sky into a pot. They make out specific yogic mystic powers, beginning with anima. Indeed, the inhabitants of Vidyadhara Loka acquired the art of flying in the sky. Purpose by Srila Prabhupada. The inhabitants of both Siddhaloka and Vidyadhara Loka are naturally endowed with mystic yogic powers by which they do not only can fly in outer space without a vehicle, but can also fly from one planet to another simply by exerting their will. Just as fish can swim within water, the residents of Vidyadhara Loka can swim in the ocean of air. As far as the inhabitants of Siddhaloka are concerned, they are endowed with all mystic powers. The yogis in this planet practice the eightfold yogic mysticism, namely yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. By regularly practicing the yogic processes, one after another, the yogis attain various perfections. They can become smaller than the smallest, heavier than the heaviest, etc. They can even manufacture a planet, get whatever they like, and control whatever man they want. All the residents of Siddhaloka are naturally endowed with these mystic yogic powers. It is certainly a very wonderful thing if we see a person on this planet flying in the sky without a vehicle. But in the Vidyadhara Loka, such flying is as common as a bird's flying in the sky. Similarly, in Siddhaloka, all the inhabitants are great yogis, perfect in mystic powers. The name of Kapila Muni is significant in this verse because he was the expounder of the Sankhya philosophical system. And his father, Kadama Muni, was a great yogi and mystic. Indeed, Kadama Muni prepared a great airplane, which was as large as a small town. It had various gardens, palatial buildings, servants, and maid servants. With all the paraphernalia, Kapila Dev's mother, Devahuti, and his father, Kadama Muni, traveled all over the universe and visited different planets. Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
All right. So these mystic powers, are very desirable. People want them in these movies where people have mystic powers. Mostly they're destructive powers, but they become very popular. People pray for them. People, if somebody promises or something like that, they will give their money, they'll give everything. Said that the pure devotee has all the mystic powers, but he never wants to use them. He just wants to serve Chana. He just wants to serve Krishna. Doesn't want to manipulate the material energy and use up his punya. Okay, text 20. So we're also learning a lot about the universe, all these different types of people and different lokas. They're real. And, there are inhabitants on all these planets. And some of them are materially much more advanced than on Earth. But it's still said by the Lord Brahma that the best birth in this universe is a human being on Earth. Because this is where the opportunity for spiritual advancement is best, especially right now. So you may think, why was I born in a poor country? Why this, why that? But actually, because you're a devotee, you had the most fortunate verse in the entire universe, envied by all the demigods. Hard to understand. That's a fact. Because where you're going at the end, if you stick to it, we stick to the process of chanting, don't have the foolish idea that I'll just chant at the time of death and I'll just make money now and enjoy. Not much chance that you will chant at the time of death. That's like saying, I won't go to university, I'll get an honorary degree, I'll get an honorary PhD. Very few people get that. And the only people that get it are ones who did like amazing things in the world of science and something, revolution. All right. Others also, the inhabitants of planets named as Kim Purusha Loka, made the demon Maya into a calf and milked out mystic powers by which one can disappear immediately from another's vision and appear again in a different form. Report. It is said that the inhabitants of Kim Purusha Loka can perform many wonderful mystic demonstrations. In other words, they can exhibit as many wonderful things as one can imagine. The inhabitants of this planet can do whatever they want or whatever they imagine. Such powers are also mystic powers. The possession of such mystic power is called Ishita. The demons generally learn such mystic powers by the practice of yoga. In the Dashama Skanda, the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a vivid description of how demons appear before Krishna in various wonderful forms. For instance, Bakasura appeared before Krishna in his cowherd voice as a gigantic crane. That's a fish. Now we think of a crane as the thing they use for building buildings. in the city I'm in now, everywhere I look, there's so many of those cranes. They're just building so many things. We had in Mayapur for the TOVP, we had a couple of big cranes for a while. But this is the crane bird, the long-legged bird with a long neck and a big sharp beak. And they stand in the water and then catch fish. It's a crane. That was Bakasura. Baka means that's the name of crane. Well, present on this planet, Lord Krishna had to fight with so many demoniac people who could exhibit the wonderful mystic powers of Kimpurusha Loka. Although the inhabitants of Kimpurusha Loka are naturally empowered with such powers, one can attain these powers on this planet by performing different yogic practices. Very, very difficult yoga for maybe many lifetimes of tapasya. Then you can get these mystic powers. And you can be like the X-Men, very popular movies. All these people, they call them mutants, but they just all have different mystic powers. Some of them are the same ones we find described in Bhagavatam. But devotees are not anxious. Hopefully we're not chanting to Krishna, please give me mystic power so I can, control everyone, or so I can, pick up the gold from the heavenly planets or something. The devotees are praying, let me bow down at your lotus feet, let me serve faithfully. Okay, we have time for one or two more. Salika, call on somebody.
Jyotishari Prabhu, you want to read?
Okay. He's on the upper left-hand corner.
Yes,
First
Prabhuji.
one. Yeah.
21. Then the yakshas, rakshasas, ghosts, and witches who are habituated to eating flesh transform from Shiva's incarnation, Rudra, Bhutnath, into the calf and milk out beverages made of blood and put them into a pot made of skulls. Purport. There are some types of living entities in the form of human being whose living condition and eatable are most abominable. Generally, they eat flesh and fermented blood, which is mentioned in this verse as a Shata Jasvam, the leader of such degraded men known as Yakshas, Rakshasas, Bhutas, and Pisachas, are all in the mode of ignorance. They have been placed under the control of Rudra. Rudra is incarnation of Lord Shiva and is in charge of the mode of ignorance in material nature. Another name of Lord Shiva is Bhutnath, meaning master of ghosts. Rudra was born from between Brahma's eyes when Brahma was very angry at the four Kumaras.
Okay. Thank you. That's time to stop. One more. There is time for one more. Anybody have any comment about the whole thing? You believe this? Many academic people might know all this, and they just think these are just stories, analogies. They're just something, and they try to interpret and give. But this is real. This is actually real. There are all these planets, and all these things happen. This is, something to think about. Devotees will believe it. Let's hear from Mr. Sampson. Some comment for 1 minute. Yeah, we'll speak for 1 minute. What's our takeaway? Okay, if you're not going to speak, we can stop. Thank you very much. Tomorrow, same time, same station. There's much more to go, so this King Prithu part is a very major part of the Bhagavatam and very, very relevant, for our movement and for our leadership. Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna,
to everybody. Open the mic.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare.
Chakarpataru Vyascha.
Rama Rama.